Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is the annual final playoff game of the National Football League (NFL) to determine the league champion. It has served as the final game of every NFL season since 1966, replacing the NFL Championship game. Since 2022, the game is played on the second Sunday in February. Prior Super Bowls were played on Sundays in early to mid-January from 1967 to 1978. Late January from 1979 to 2003, and the first Sunday of February from 2004 to 2021. Winning teams are awarded the Vince Lombardi Trophy, named for the coach who won the first two Super Bowls. Due to the NFL restricting use of its Super Bowl trademark, it is frequently referred to as the Big Game or other generic terms by non-sponsoring corporations. The day the game is played is often referred to as Super Bowl Sunday or simply Super Sunday. National Football League Championship Game. For a list of Super Bowl games, see List of Super Bowl champions. For the upcoming Super Bowl game on February 12, 2023, see Super Bowl LVII. For other uses, see Super Bowl disambiguation. Display of the rings given out to all the teams who have won the Super Bowl. The game was created as part of a 1966 merger agreement between the NFL and the competing American Football League (AFL) to have their best teams compete for a championship. It was originally called the AFL World Championship Game until the Super Bowl moniker was adopted in Super Bowl III. The first four Super Bowls from 1967 to 1970 were played before the merger, with the NFL and AFL each winning two. After the merger in 1970, the 10 AFL teams and 3 NFL teams formed the American Football Conference (AFC), while the remaining 13 NFL teams formed the National Football Conference (NFC). All games since Super Bowl V have been played between the winners of each conference's championship game, with the NFC leading the AFC. IFL's current 32 teams, 2011 NFC, 9 AFC have won a Super Bowl and 15 AAFC. 7 NFC hold multiple titles. The Pittsburgh Steelers and New England Patriots have the most Super Bowl titles at 6 each. The Patriots also have the most appearances at 11. Among NFC franchises, the Dallas Cowboys and San Francisco Bears have the most titles with 5 each, and the Cowboys have the most appearances with 8. The Patriots and the Denver Broncos of the AFC hold the record for the most defeats in the Super Bowl, with 5 each. The Baltimore Ravens of the AFC and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NFC are the only franchises to be undefeated in multiple Super Bowls, having each won 2. Among the 12 teams who have not won a Super Bowl, the Cleveland Browns, Houston Texans, and Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Detroit Lions are the only 4 to have not appeared in the game. Super Bowl is among the world's most watched single sporting events and frequently commands the largest audience among all American broadcasts during the year. It is second only to the UEFA Champions League final as the most watched annual club sporting event worldwide, and the 7 most watched broadcasts in American television history are Super Bowls. Commercial airtime during the Super Bowl broadcast is the most expensive of the year because of the high viewership, leading to companies regularly developing their most expensive advertisements for the broadcast and commercial viewership becoming an integral part of the event. The Super Bowl is also the second largest event for American food consumption, behind Thanksgiving dinner. Origin. The first Super Bowl at Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. For 4 decades after its 1920 inception, the NFL successfully fended off several rival leagues. In 1960, the NFL encountered its most serious competitor when the American Football League (AFL) was formed. The AFL vied with the NFL for players and fans. The original bowl game was the Rose Bowl game in Pasadena, California, which was first played in 1902 as the Tournament East-West football game as part of the Pasadena Tournament of Roses, and moved to the new Rose Bowl Stadium in 1923. The stadium got its name from the fact that the game played there was part of the Tournament of Roses and that it was shaped like a bowl, much like the Yale Bowl in New Haven, Connecticut. The Tournament of Roses football game eventually came to be known as the Rose Bowl game. Exploiting the Rose Bowl game's popularity, postseason college football contests were created for Miami, the Orange Bowl, New Orleans, the Sugar Bowl, and El Paso, the Sun Bowl in 1935. and for Dallas the Cotton Bowl in 1937. By the time the first Super Bowl was played, the term bowl for any major American football game was well established. Packers defeated the Chiefs in the first AFL championship game, Super Bowl I, after the American Football League's inaugural season. AFL Commissioner Joe Foss sent an invitation to the NFL on January 14, 1961, to schedule a World Playoff game between the two leagues' champions. Beginning with the upcoming 1961 season, the first World Playoff game would have, if actually played, matched up the Houston Oilers versus the Green Bay Packers. It took a half dozen more seasons for this idea to become a reality. In the mid-ers, Lamar Hunt, owner of the AFL's Kansas City Chiefs, first used the term Super Bowl to refer to the AFL championship game in the merger meetings. Hunt later said the name was likely in his head because his children had been playing with a Super Bowl toy. A vintage example of the ball is on display at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. In a July 25, 1966, letter to NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle, Hunt wrote, "I'd have kiddingly called it the Super Bowl, which obviously can be improved up until league's owners chose the name of AFL Championship Game." But in July 1966, the Kansas City Star quoted Hunt in discussing the Super Bowl. "That's my term for the championship game between the two leagues," and the media immediately began using the term, although the league stated in 1967 that not many people like it, asking for suggestions and considering alternatives such as Merger Bowl and the game. The Associated Press reported that Super Bowl grew and grew and grew until it reached the point that there was Super Week, Super Sunday, Super Teams, Super Players. Ad infinitum, Super Bowl became official beginning with the third annual game. Roman numerals are used to identify each Super Bowl rather than the year in which it is held. Since the fifth edition in January 1971, the sole exception to this naming convention tradition occurred with Super Bowl 50, which was played on February 7, 2016, following the 2015 regular season, and the following year the nomenclature returned to Roman numerals for Super Bowl LI. Following the 2016 regular season, the Jets were the first AFL team to win a Super Bowl III, defeating the Colts after the AFL's Green Bay Packers won the first two Super Bowls. Some team owners feared for the future of the merger. At the time, many doubted the competitiveness of AFL teams compared with their NFL counterparts, though that perception changed when the AFL's New York Jets defeated the AFL's Baltimore Colts in Super Bowl III in Miami. 1 year later, the AFL's Kansas City Chiefs defeated the AFL's Minnesota Vikings in Super Bowl IV in New Orleans, which was the final AFL World Championship game played before the merger. Beginning with the 1970 season, the NFL realigned into two conferences, the former AFL teams plus three NFL teams. The Baltimore Colts, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Cleveland Browns would constitute the American Football Conference (AFC), while the remaining NFL clubs would form the National Football Conference (NFC). The champions of the two conferences would play each other in the Super Bowl. The winning team receives the Vince Lombardi Trophy, named after the coach of the Green Bay Packers, who won the first two Super Bowl games and three of the five preceding NFL championships in 1961, 1962, and 1965. Following Lombardi's death in September 1970, the trophy was named after him. The first trophy awarded under the new name was presented to the Baltimore Colts following their win in Super Bowl V in Miami. The coin toss was usually presented by a former football player or a special guest to recognize their community involvement or significance. Pre-game ceremonies. The pre-game ceremonies usually go in the following order. Presentation of the most valuable players occurred every 10 years since Lift Every Voice and Sing Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award. Presentation America the Bountiful. Presentation of the Colors Star-Spangled Banner, followed by flyover coin toss. Date. The Super Bowl is played on the second Sunday in February. The current NFL schedule begins on the weekend immediately after Labor Day, the first Monday in September. That weekend is the first of an 18-week regular season. followed by 3 weeks of playoff games and 1 week for the Pro Bowl. The Super Bowl is contested the week after the Pro Bowl. This schedule has been in effect since an 18th week and 17th regular season game were added to the NFL schedule for the 2021 season, with Super Bowl LVI on February 13, 2022. The first to be played under this format, Super Bowl, was held in January from its inception until 2002, when the week of games following the September 11 attacks were postponed and rescheduled, extending the season by a week and causing Super Bowl XXXVI to be played on February 3, beginning with Super Bowl XXXVII in 2004. The Super Bowl was scheduled for the first Sunday in February until the schedule expansion of the 2021 season moved the game to the second Sunday. Television coverage and ratings. Main article, Super Bowl television ratings. See also, list of most watched television broadcasts in the United States. Super Bowl XXXV broadcasting compound, full of satellite trucks. Super Bowl is one of the most watched annual sporting events in the world, with viewership overwhelmingly domestic. The only other annual event that gathers more viewers is the UEFA Champions League final. For many years, the Super Bowl has possessed a large U.S. and global television viewership, and it is often the most watched United States originating television program of the year. The game tends to have a high Nielsen television rating, which is usually around a 40 rating and 60 shares. This means that, on average, more than 100 million people from the United States alone are tuned into the Super Bowl at any given moment. In press releases preceding the game, the NFL has claimed that the upcoming Super Bowl will have a potential worldwide audience of around 1 billion people in over 200 countries. However, this figure refers to the number of people able to watch the game, not the number of people who will actually be watching. Regardless, the statements have been frequently misinterpreted in the media as referring to the latter figure, leading to a misperception about the game's actual global audience. The New York-based media research firm Initiative measured the global audience for the Super Bowl XXXIX at 93 million people, with 98% of that figure being viewers in North America, which meant roughly 2 million people outside North America watched the Super Bowl. That year's Super Bowl XLIX holds the record for average number of U.S. viewers, with 114.4 million, making the game the most viewed television broadcast of any kind in American history. The halftime show set a record with 118.5 million viewers tuning in. Super Bowl XLIX peaked at 120.8 million viewers. The game set a record for total viewers for the 5th time in 6 years. The highest rated game according to Nielsen was Super Bowl XVI in 1982, which was watched in a percentage of households, 73 shares, or 40,020,000 households at the time. Ratings for that game, a San Francisco victory over Cincinnati, may have been aided by a large blizzard that had affected much of the northeastern United States on game day, leaving residents to stay at home more than usual. Super Bowl XVI still ranks 4th on Nielsen's list of top-rated programs of all time, with 3 other Super Bowls, XVI, XX, and XLIX, in the top 10. Mouse Super Bowl commercials include the 1984 introduction of Apple's Macintosh computer, the Budweiser Bud Bowl campaign, and the .com ads aired during Super Bowl XXXIV. As the television ratings of the Super Bowl have steadily increased over the years, commercial prices have also increased, with advertisers paying as much as $7 million for a 30-second spot during Super Bowl LVI in 2022. A segment of the audience tunes into the Super Bowl solely to view commercials. In 2010, Nielsen reported that 51% of Super Bowl viewers tune in for the commercials. Since 1991, the Super Bowl has begun between 6:19 and 6:40 p.m. EST, so that most of the game is played during the primetime hours on the East Coast. See also, list of Super Bowl broadcasters and National Football League on television. Throughout most of its history, the Super Bowl has been rotated annually between the same American television networks that broadcast the NFL's regular season and postseason game. The Super Bowl I, played in 1967, is the only Super Bowl to have been broadcast in the United States by 2 networks simultaneously. At the time, NBC held the rights to nationally televise AFL games while CBS had the rights to broadcast NFL games. Both networks were allowed to cover the game, and each network used its own announcers, but NBC was only allowed to use the CBS feed instead of producing its own. Beginning with Super Bowl II, NBC televised the game in even years and CBS in odd years. This annual rotation between the two networks continued through the 1970s, a full merger when NBC was given the rights to televise AFC games and CBS winning the rights to broadcast NFC games. Although ABC began broadcasting Monday Night Football in 1970, it was not added to the Super Bowl rotation until Super Bowl XIX, played in 1985. ABC, CBS, and NBC then continued to rotate the Super Bowl until 1994, when Fox replaced CBS as the NFC broadcaster. CBS then took its place in the rotation after the former replaced the later as the AFC broadcaster in 1998, as a result of new contracts signed in 2006, with NBC taking over Sunday Night Football from ESPN and Monday Night Football moving from ABC to ESPN. NBC took its place in the Super Bowl rotation. The rotation between CBS, Fox, and NBC will continue until the new contracts that will take effect for the first time with Super Bowl LVII, allowing ABC to return and starting a four-network rotation. NFL has broken the traditional broadcasting rotation if it can be used to bolster other major sporting events a network airs afterwards. For example, CBS was given Super Bowl XXVI 1992 after it won the rights to air the 1992 Winter Olympics, with NBC subsequently airing Super Bowl XXVII 1993 and Super Bowl XXVII 1994 in consecutive years. Likewise, NBC aired Super Bowl LVI 2022 instead of CBS during 2022 Winter Olympics, which were also aired by NBC. CBS received Super Bowl LV 2021 in return. Under the four-network rotation that will take effect beginning in 2024, the league will award NBC the Super Bowl during Winter Olympic years. The first 6 Super Bowls were blacked out in the television markets of the host cities due to league restrictions then in place. Super Bowl VII 1973 was telecast in Los Angeles on an experimental basis after all tickets were sold 10 days before the game. Game analyst John Madden is the only person to broadcast a Super Bowl for each of the four networks that have televised the game: 5 with CBS, 3 with Fox, 2 with ABC, and 1 with NBC. Note: years listed are the year the game was actually played will be played rather than what NFL season it is considered to have been. The current TV contract with the networks expires after the 2022 season or Super Bowl LVII in early 2023. Under the deal, the Super Bowl is currently rotated annually between CBS, Fox, and NBC in that order. ABC will return to the rotation in the upcoming contract, which is scheduled to take effect at the start of the 2023 season. The first Super Bowl was simultaneously broadcast by CBS and NBC, with each network using the same video feed from CBS, but providing its own commentary. See also list of Super Bowl lead-out programs. Super Bowl provides an extremely strong lead into programming following it on the same channel, the effects of which can last for several hours. For instance, in discussing the ratings of a local TV station, Buffalo television critic Alan Pergament noted that following Super Bowl XLVII, which aired on CBS, a paid program that ran on CBS 4 WIVB-TV at 2:30 in the morning had a 1.3 rating. That's higher than some CW primetime shows get on WNLO-TV channel sister station. Because of this strong coattail effect, the network that airs the Super Bowl typically takes advantage of the large audience to air an episode of a hit series or to premiere the pilot of a promising new one in the lead-out slot, which immediately follows the Super Bowl and post-game coverage. Entertainment. See also list of national anthem performers at the Super Bowl and list of Super Bowl halftime shows. Initially, it was sort of a novelty, and so it didn't quite feel right, but it was just like, this is the year, bands of our generation, you can sort of be seen on a stage like this, or Like not seen, there's not a lot of middle places. It is a tremendous venue. Bruce Springsteen on why he turned down several invitations to perform at the Super Bowl before finally agreeing to appear in Super Bowl XLI. Jennifer Hudson sings the national anthem at Super Bowl XLI, closing the opening ceremony of the Super Bowl. Early Super Bowls featured a halftime show consisting of marching bands from local colleges or high schools, but as the popularity of the game increased, a trend where popular singers and musicians performed during its pre-game ceremonies and the halftime show, or simply sang the national anthem of the United States or America the Beautiful emerged. Unlike regular season or playoff games, 30 minutes are allocated for the Super Bowl halftime. After a special live episode of the Fox sketch comedy series In Living Color caused a drop in viewership for the Super Bowl XXVI halftime show, the NFL sought to increase the Super Bowl's audience by hiring a list talent to perform. They approached Michael Jackson, whose performance the following year drew higher figures than the game itself. Another notable performance came during Super Bowl XXXVI in 2002, when it performed during their third song, Where the Streets Have No Name. The band played under a large projection screen which scrolled through names of the victims of the September 11 attacks. For many years, Whitney Houston's performance of the national anthem at Super Bowl XXV in 1991 during the Gulf War had long been regarded as one of the best renditions of the anthem in history. Before Super Bowl XLVII, soprano Renee Fleming became the first opera singer to perform the anthem. Halftime show of Super Bowl XXXVII attracted controversy following an incident in which Justin Timberlake removed a piece of Janet Jackson's top, briefly exposing one of her breasts before the broadcast quickly cut away from the shot. The incident led to fines being issued by the FCC and a larger crackdown over indecent content broadcast on television, and MTV, then a sister to the game's broadcaster that year, CBS, under Viacom, being banned by the NFL from producing the Super Bowl halftime show in the future. In an effort to prevent a repeat of the incident, the NFL held a moratorium on Super Bowl halftime shows featuring pop performers and instead invited a single, headlining veteran act such as Paul McCartney, the Rolling Stones, The Who, Prince, and Bruce Springsteen. This practice ended at Super Bowl XLV, which returned to using current pop acts such as the Black Eyed Peas, Katy Perry, and Lady Gaga. Excluding Super Bowl XXXIX, the famous I'm Going to Disney World advertising campaign took place in every Super Bowl since Super Bowl XXI, when quarterback Phil Simms from the Giants became the first player to say the tagline. Venues. For a full list of Super Bowl games and venues, see List of Super Bowl champions. Caesars Superdome has hosted 7 Super Bowls, more than any other stadium. Hard Rock Stadium has hosted 6 out of the record 11 Super Bowls played in the Miami metropolitan areas of Super Bowl LVI. 29 of 56 Super Bowls have been played in 3 metropolitan areas: the Greater Miami area 11 times, New Orleans 10 times, and the Greater Los Angeles area 8 times. No market or region without an active NFL franchise has ever hosted a Super Bowl, and the presence of an NFL team in a market or region is now a de jure requirement for bidding on the game. For instance, while Los Angeles had been a 7-time host city, with its most recent being Super Bowl XXVII in 1993, it did not host one from the departure of both its NFL teams in 1995 until the Rams and the Chargers subsequently came back to Los Angeles in 2016 and 2017 respectively. The Louisiana Superdome has hosted 7 Super Bowls, the most of any venue, with an 8th Super Bowl scheduled to take place in the season. The Orange Bowl was the only AFL stadium to host a Super Bowl and the only stadium to host consecutive Super Bowls. Hosting Super Bowls II and II Super Bowls have been held in a stadium other than the one the NFL team in that city was using at the time, a situation that has not arisen after Super Bowl XVI's host stadium was selected on March 19, 1991. This was as the winning market was previously not required to host the Super Bowl in the same stadium that its NFL team used. If the stadium in which the Super Bowl was held was perceived to be a better stadium for a large high-profile event than the existing NFL home stadium in the same city, For example, Los Angeles's last 5 Super Bowls were all played at the Rose Bowl, which has never been used by any NFL franchise outside of the Super Bowl, besides the Rose Bowl. The only other Super Bowl venues that were not the home stadium to NFL teams at the time were Rice Stadium. The Houston Oilers had played in Rice Stadium previously but moved to the Astrodome several years before Super Bowl VIII in Stanford Stadium. Starting with the selection of the Super Bowl XXVII venue on May 23, 1990, the league has given preference in awarding the Super Bowl to brand new or recently renovated NFL stadiums, alongside a trend of teams demanding public money or relocating to play in new stadiums. To date, only 2 teams have qualified for a Super Bowl at their home stadiums: the 2020 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who won Super Bowl LV hosted at Raymond James Stadium, selected on May 23, 2017, and the 2021 Los Angeles Rams the following season, who won Super Bowl LVI at SoFi Stadium. Before that, the closest any team had come to accomplishing this feat were the 2017 Minnesota Vikings, who reached the NFC Championship game but lost to the Eagles. In that instance, U.S. Bank Stadium became the first Super Bowl host stadium selected on May 20, 2014 to also host a divisional playoff game in the same season, which the Vikings won. All previous times that this Super Bowl host stadium hosted another playoff game in the same postseason were all wildcard games. 2 teams have played the Super Bowl in their home market but at a different venue than their home stadium: the Los Angeles Rams, who lost Super Bowl XIV in the Rose Bowl instead of Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and the Ayers, who won Super Bowl XIX in Stanford Stadium instead of Candlestick Park, during a time when the league often picked a stadium that was not home to an NFL team to host the Super Bowl. See above. Traditionally, the NFL does not award Super Bowls to stadiums that are located in climates with an expected average daily temperature less than 50 F10C on game day, unless the field can be completely covered by a fixed or retractable roof. 6 Super Bowls have been played in northern cities: 2 in the Detroit-era Super Bowl XVI at Pontiac Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan, and Super Bowl XL at Ford Field in Detroit; 2 in Minneapolis, Super Bowl XXVI at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome, and Super Bowl LII at the U.S. Bank Stadium; 1 in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium for Super Bowl XLVI, and 1 in the New York-era Super Bowl XLVII at MetLife Stadium. Only MetLife Stadium did not have a roof, be it fixed or retractable, but it was still picked as the host stadium for Super Bowl XLVII in an apparent waiver of the warm climate rule, with a contingency plan to reschedule the game in the event of heavy snowfall. MetLife Stadium's selection over Sun Life Stadium generated controversy, as the league requested a roof to be added to Sun Life Stadium in the event of rainstorms in order to be considered for future Super Bowls. There have been a few instances where the league has rescinded the Super Bowl from cities. Super Bowl XXVII in 1993 was originally awarded to Sun Devil Stadium in Tempe, Arizona, but after Arizona voters elected not to recognize Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a paid state employees' holiday in 1990, the NFL moved the game to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California, when voters in Arizona opted to create such a legal holiday in 1992. Super Bowl XXX in 1996 was awarded to Tempe. Super Bowl XXXI was awarded first to Candlestick Park in San Francisco, but when plans to renovate the stadium fell through, the game was moved to Pro Player Stadium in Greater Miami. Super Bowl XXXVI was awarded to a new stadium not yet built in San Francisco. When that stadium failed to be built, the game was moved to Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego. Super Bowl XLIV, slated for February 7, 2010, was withdrawn from New York City's proposed West Side Stadium because the city, state, and proposed tenants New York Jets could not agree on funding. Super Bowl XLIV was then eventually awarded to Sun Life Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. Super Bowl XLIX in 2015 was originally given to Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri, but after 2 sales taxes failed to pass at the ballot box, a renovation proposal had passed successfully, but a second ballot question to add a rolling roof structure to be shared with Kauffman Stadium, critical for the game to be hosted, was rejected, and opposition by local business leaders and politicians increased. Kansas City eventually withdrew its request to host the game. Super Bowl XLIX was then eventually awarded to University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. Location of the Super Bowl is chosen at a meeting of all NFL team owners, usually 3 to 5 years before the event. The game has never been played in a metropolitan area that lacked an NFL franchise at the time the game was played, although in 2007 NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell suggested that a Super Bowl might be played in London, perhaps at Wembley Stadium. For Super Bowl LVI, teams were allowed to bid for the rights to host Super Bowls, where cities submitted proposals to host a Super Bowl and were evaluated in terms of stadium renovation and their ability to host, but this competition was rescinded in 2018. The league has made all decisions regarding hosting sites from Super Bowl LVII onward. The league chose a potential venue unilaterally. The chosen team put together a hosting proposal, and the league voted upon it to determine if it is acceptable. In 2014, a document listing the specific requirements of Super Bowl hosts was leaked, giving a clear list of what was required for a Super Bowl host. Some of the host requirements include host stadium must be in a market that hosts an NFL team and must have a minimum of 70,000 seats, with the media and electrical amenities necessary to produce the Super Bowl. Stadiums may include temporary seating for Super Bowls, but seating must be approved by the league. Stadiums where the average game day temperature is below 50 F10C must either have a roof or a waiver given by the league. There must be a minimum of 35,000 parking spaces within 1 mile of the stadium. Host stadium must have space for the game day experience, a large pregame entertainment area within walking distance of the stadium. Host city must have space for the NFL experience, the interactive football theme park, which is operated the week before the Super Bowl. An indoor venue for the event must have a minimum of 850,000 square feet, 79,000, and an outdoor venue must have a minimum of 1 million square feet, 93,000. Additionally, there must be space nearby for the media center and space for all other events involved in the Super Bowl week, including golf courses and bowling alleys. Necessary infrastructure must be in place around the stadium and other Super Bowl facilities, including parking, security, electrical needs, media needs, communication needs, and transportation needs. There must be a minimum number of hotel spaces within 1 hour's drive of the stadium, equaling a percentage of the stadium's capacity, along with hotels for the teams, officials, media, and other dignitaries. For Super Bowl XXXIX, the city of Jacksonville docked several luxury cruise liners at their port to act as temporary hotel space. There must be practice space of equal and comparable quality for both teams within a 20-minute drive of the team hotels, and rehearsal space for all events within a reasonable distance to the stadium. The practice facilities must have 1 grass field and at least 1 field of the same surface as the host stadium. Stadium must have a minimum of 70,000 fixed seats, including club and fixed suite seating. During regular season operation, some of the cost of a Super Bowl is to be assumed by the host community, although some costs are enumerated within the requirements to be assumed by the NFL. New Orleans, the site of Super Bowl XLVII in 2013, invested more than $1 billion in infrastructure improvements in the years leading up to the game. The NFL finds backup stadiums for the Super Bowl every year. In the event of a last-minute relocation of the game, the designated home team alternates between the NFC team in odd-numbered games and the AFC team in even-numbered games. This alternation was initiated with the first Super Bowl, when the Packers were the designated home team. Regardless of being the home or away team of record, each team has their team logo and wardmark painted in one of the end zones. Designated away teams have won 31 of 56 Super Bowls to date, approximately a percentage. Washington is one of 6 home teams that chose to wear the white jersey, shown here in Super Bowl XI since Super Bowl XIII 1979. The home team is given the choice of wearing their colored or white jerseys. Originally, the designated home team had to wear their colored jerseys, which resulted in the Cowboys donning their less exposed dark blue jerseys for Super Bowl V. While most of the home teams in the Super Bowl have chosen to wear their colored jerseys, there have been 7 exceptions. The Cowboys during Super Bowls XIII and XXVII, the Washington Redskins during Super Bowl XVII, the Steelers during Super Bowl XL, the Broncos during Super Bowl 50, the Patriots in Super Bowl LII, and the Buccaneers in Super Bowl LV. The Cowboys, since 1964, have worn white jerseys at home. The Washington Redskins wore white at home under coach Joe Gibbs starting in 1981 through 1992, continued by Richie Pettitman and Narv Turner through 2000, then again when Gibbs returned from 2004 through 2007. Meanwhile, the Steelers, who have always worn their black jerseys at home since the full merger in 1970, opted for the white jerseys after winning 3 consecutive playoff games on the road, wearing white. The Steelers' decision was compared with the Patriots in Super Bowl XX. The Patriots had worn white jerseys at home during the 1985 season, but after winning road playoff games against the Jets and Dolphins, wearing red jerseys, New England opted to switch to scarlet for the Super Bowl as the designated home team. For the Broncos in Super Bowl 50, Denver general manager John Elway simply stated, "We've had Super Bowl success in our white uniforms." They previously had been in Super Bowls when wearing their orange jerseys. The Broncos' decision is also perceived to be made out of superstition, losing all Super Bowl games with the orange jerseys in terrible fashion. It is unclear why the Patriots chose to wear their white jerseys for Super Bowl LII during the pairing of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. New England has mostly worn their blue jerseys for home games, but have worn white for a home game in the 2008, 2010, and 2011 seasons. The Patriots were in their white uniforms in Super Bowls before Super Bowl LII with Belichick and Brady, and they may have been going on recent trends of teams who wear white for the Super Bowl game. For Super Bowl LV, when the Buccaneers became the first team to reach the Super Bowl that their own stadium hosted, the Bucs coincidentally were designated the home team as per AFC and NFC rotation and elected to wear their white jerseys, having previously won both their divisional and championship postseason games on the road in white jerseys. White-shirted teams have won 36 of 56 Super Bowls to date by percentage. The only teams to win in their dark-colored uniform in more recent years are the Packers against the Steelers in Super Bowl XLV, the Eagles against the Patriots in Super Bowl LII, and the Chiefs against the Bears in Super Bowl LIV, with teams in white winning 12 of the last 13 Super Bowls. Bears, as part of the league's 75th anniversary celebration, used their 1955 throwback uniform in Super Bowl XXIX, which for that year was their regular home jersey. The Los Angeles Rams in Super Bowl LII wore their royal blue and yellow uniforms, which was a throwback uniform but then turned into their primary colors over the navy blue and metallic gold uniform, which they have previously worn for 6 home games, including a home playoff game. No team has yet worn a third jersey or colored rush uniform for the Super Bowl. The Bears reportedly requested to wear an all-white third jersey ensemble for Super Bowl LIV, which the San Francisco Chronicle noted they could do with special permission from the league. The league never granted such permission, and the Bears instead opted for their standard uniform of white jerseys with gold pants. For a full list of Super Bowl venues, see List of Super Bowl champions: Miami Metro Area, Orleans La Metro Area, Templeton Depot, Houston, Detroit Metro, Atlanta Phoenix Metro Area, Minneapolis, Jacksonville, South Bay Area, Dallas, Fort Worth, Indianapolis, Metro Area, Las Vegas Valley. Super Bowl host cities or regions: 15 different regions have hosted Super Bowls. Note: years listed are the year the game was actually played or will be played. Future games are denoted through italics rather than what NFL season it is considered to have been. A total of 27 different stadiums, 7 of which have been since demolished, either have hosted or are scheduled to host Super Bowls. The years listed in the table below are the years the game was actually played will be played rather than the NFL season it concluded. The stadium has since been demolished. Miami Gardens became a city in 2003. Prior to this, the stadium had a Miami address in unincorporated Miami-Dade County. The original Stanford Stadium, which hosted Super Bowl XIX, was demolished and a new stadium constructed on the site in future Super Bowls, also denoted by italics. Future venues. Super Bowl has not yet been played in any region that lacked an NFL or AFL franchise at the time the game was played. San Diego is the only metropolitan area as of 2021 that has hosted past Super Bowls, but does not currently have an NFL franchise. San Diego Stadium hosted 3 Super Bowls before their NFL franchise relocated to Los Angeles. Also, London, England, has occasionally been mentioned as a host city for a Super Bowl in the near future. Wembley Stadium has hosted several NFL games as part of the NFL International Series and is specifically designed for large, individual events, and NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell has openly discussed the possibility on different occasions time zone complications are a significant obstacle to a Super Bowl in London. A typical 6:30 p.m. EST start would result in the game beginning at 11:30 p.m. local time in London, this in an unusually late hour to be holding spectator sports. While the NFL has never in its history started a game later than 9:15 p.m. local time, although bids have been submitted for all Super Bowls through Super Bowl LIX, the soonest bet any stadium outside the NFL's footprint could serve as host would be Super Bowl LX. NII stadiums that hosted at least one Super Bowl no longer exist. Tulane Stadium on the Tulane University campus, which hosted 3 Super Bowls, was demolished in November. Tampa Stadium, which hosted 2 Super Bowls, was demolished in April. Stanford Stadium, which hosted 1 Super Bowl, was demolished and redeveloped in Orange Bowl, which hosted 5 Super Bowls, was demolished in May. Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome in Minneapolis, which hosted 1 Super Bowl, was demolished in March. Georgia Dome in Atlanta, which hosted 2 Super Bowls, was demolished in November. Pontiac Silverdome in suburban Detroit, which hosted 1 Super Bowl, was demolished in March. San Diego Stadium, which hosted 3 Super Bowls, closed in March 2020 and was demolished in early 2021. Super Bowl trademark. The NFL very actively seeks to prevent what it calls unauthorized commercial use of its trademarked terms NFL, Super Bowl, and Super Bowl Sunday. As a result, many events and promotions tied to the game, but not sanctioned by the NFL, are asked to refer to it with euphemisms such as the big game or other generic descriptions. A radio spot for Planters Nuts parodied this by saying it would be super to have a bowl of Planters Nuts while watching the big game, and comedian Stephen Colbert began referring to the game in 2014 as the Superb Owl. In 2015, the NFL filed opposition with the USPTO Trademark Trial and Appeal Board to a trademark application submitted by an Arizona-based nonprofit for Superb Owl. The NFL claims that the use of the phrase Super Bowl implies an NFL affiliation, and on this basis the league asserts broad rights to restrict how the game may be shown publicly. For example, the league says Super Bowl showings are prohibited in churches or at other events that promote a message, while venues that do not regularly show sporting events cannot show the Super Bowl on any television screen larger than 55 inches. Some critics say the NFL is exaggerating its ownership rights by stating that any use is prohibited, as this contradicts the broad doctrine of fair use in the United States. Legislation was proposed by Utah Senator Orrin Hatch in 2008 to provide an exemption from exclusive rights in copyright for certain nonprofit organizations to display live football games, and for other purposes. In 2004, the NFL started issuing cease and desist letters to casinos in Las Vegas that were hosting Super Bowl parties. Super Bowl is a registered trademark owned by the NFL, and any other business using that name for profit-making ventures is in violation of federal law, according to the letters. In reaction to the letters, many Las Vegas resorts, rather than discontinue the popular and lucrative parties, started referring to them as big game parties. In 2006, the NFL made an attempt to trademark the big game as well. However, it withdrew the application in 2007 due to growing commercial and public relations opposition to the move, mostly from Stanford University and the University of California, Berkeley, and their fans, as the Stanford Cardinal football and California Golden Bears football teams compete in the big game, which has been played since 1892, 28 years before the formation of the NFL and 75 years before Super Bowl I. Additionally, the Mega Millions lottery game was known as the Big Game, then the Big Game Mega Millions from 1996 to 2002. Further reading: 2006 NFL Record and Fact Book. Time Inc. Home Entertainment, July 1, 2006. ISBN 1-933-405-32. Total Football 2. the official encyclopedia of the National Football League. HarperCollins, July 1, 2006. ISBN 1-933-405-32. Earth Sporting News Complete Super Bowl Book 1995. Sporting News, February 1995. ISBN 089,204 523. Xth Super Bowl, an official retrospective with DVD. Ballantine Books, 2005. ISBN 0-345 48719. Mackenbridge, Michael. 2004. America's Game, Random House. ISBN 0-375 50454. Chris Jones, February 2, 2005. NFL Titans restrictions on Super Bowl advertisements. Las Vegas Review Journal. Joan Branch, February 4, 2006. Build it and they will come. The New York Times Super Bowl play-by-plays from USA Today. Retrieved September 28, 2005. 1 Greatest Super Bowl Moments by Kevin Jackson, Jeff Marin, and David Schoenfield. ESPN. Retrieved December 5. Urses 25 Lost Treasure. Sports Illustrated, July 11, 2005. Earth Super Bowl IV. Lost Treasures of NFL Films. ISPA, January 26. Earth's Super Bowl Uncensored. MTV, January 27. Talk Shows. CBS, 50 Years from Television City. CBS, April 27. B. Tommy, January 2007. Super Bowl Halftime Jinx. Maxim. Archived from the original on February 8, 2009. Retrieved January 25. Ermaher, Todd, Gil, Bob. September 2011. The Pro Football Playoff Encyclopedia. ISBN 97809835136. 29.